We're here today to talk about the fact that the governor, Secretary Naig, and some of House Republicans just held a press conference about a topic that we've been talking about all session. We've been talking about water quality. We know, and Iowans know, that water quality in Iowa is a severe issue. We know that we can't just keep pretending it's not. Iowa House Democrats introduced a plan way back at the beginning of session 3 months ago that would address the issue. We're thrilled to hear that the governor has decided to acknowledge there's a problem and make some suggestions to correct it.
You know, I think that, Republicans have been in control of state government for the last decade. And I suppose better late than never, here May 1st, 2026, we now see a plan that begins to acknowledge that Iowa has a severe water pollution problem. But I will say that there's a lot more that we should be doing. Most serious environmental scientists, health scientists believe this is going to be a multi-year, multi-million dollar issue that needs to be addressed with bold, comprehensive action to clean water upstream, to treat water pollution upstream at its source. You'll find that in the governor's proposal, most of the expenditure is being used to clean water as they take it out of those polluted rivers. Well, the sustainable solution is to prevent that pollution from going into our waterways in the first place.
And to do that, we need adequate and ample water quality monitoring that is continuous. The most efficient way to do that is to give our state entities the resources that they've told us they need. This plan instead invests in a more inefficient way of doing water quality monitoring. We don't know whether it will be intermittent or continuous, whether it will be through the USGS contracts with DNR, which cost between 2 and 12 times as much as having the Iowa Flood Center do continuous water quality monitoring for us. They know how to do it, they do it well, and the data that they collect is available statewide in the event of floods, in the event of droughts, in the event of any water questions. That Iowa Flood Center, the Iowa Water Quality Information Sensor Network data is available all the time to everyone in Iowa.
I guess I'll finish for me saying that in the end, I'm happy to finally see an acknowledgement that we have a water quality problem here in the state of Iowa. I'm happy to see that Republican lawmakers have listened to Democratic leaders and the chorus of all of Iowans across the state who are asking to have access to clean, healthy water. To us, this is a human right for every Iowan to have access to clean water. No Iowan should be worried about whether they are harming their family when they fill their kid's cup from the tap. And it's our commitment here on out to continue to fight for water quality for every single Iowan until that is realized.
So, Secretary Naig, one of the things he was saying is that there is some money increasing to fund sort of like watershed upstream cleanup efforts, especially in central Iowa, but through expanded wetlands and some other programs. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to go into the details,
okay.
But just talk about those efforts and how they mesh with what you're saying.
It's a drop in the bucket of what is actually needed for meaningful, bold, comprehensive change to mitigate water pollution upstream. And so, yes, it's a drop in the bucket, and that's better than having a dry bucket, but so much more needs to be done.
I would also say it's frustrating to those of us who don't live in central Iowa to see picking and choosing. Now, we saw this summer. Johnson County acknowledges that central Iowa has a elevated water quality issue, no question. But to see statewide taxpayer resources that used to be in a fund that served the entire state being dedicated to this one particular area, there are some who are pretty frustrated about that.
This additional work that you say needs to be done, what is that to get it on the front?
Yeah, so I would call this, in the grand scheme of things, a nominal amount of money that really needs to be invested in partnering with farmers, not only on edge of field practices like buffer strips, bioreactors, wetlands, but also partnering with them for meaningful change in applying cover crops, for example. We need to create more assistance and more financial incentives for farmers to do practices like cover crops so that the amount of manure and artificial fertilizers that need to be applied in the first place can be significantly reduced. There are plenty of studies out there to say that for Iowa to meet its goals of the nutrient reduction strategy, this is hundreds of millions of dollars over time. And we probably also have to have other guidelines for our producers, for example, when fertilizer should be applied and some of those other practices. So, in my mind, this is a bit of a band-aid for a much bigger issue, and therefore I do consider a drop in the bucket, but it's better than nothing at all.
Representative Baeth, you represent Des Moines, obviously,
Yes.
and Central Iowa Water Works is getting a chunk of money to upgrade nitrate treatment. I think, it sounds like a lot of money. It seems like it's going to help them with the construction, but I think people also want to know kind of how their lives will be affected, like they were last summer with the lawn watering. What do you think this is going to do for that facility's ability to just allow Iowans to go about their lives and rely on the water that they have?
I don't know the technical information of exactly how quickly this money could be used to, in the real world, institute nitrate removal, what that timeline looks like. As designed, to my knowledge, in 3 years, it's supposed to double the capacity of nitrate removal for Central Iowa Water Works. That's great. At the same time, when we're looking at this philosophically, that's using tax dollars to, again, put all of our collective resources in removing pollution out of that river instead of trying to prevent that pollution from going in the river in the first place. I am hopeful that Iowans will have more faith in their water quality as we have more meaningful policy going forward, but there's more work to do.
I guess in an ideal situation, what would you like to see passed through this Iowa legislature, and what do you think an adequate funding amount is?
Yeah, we actually, we House Democrats in, was it January?
January.
Submitted a proposal. It's called the Iowa Healthy Water Act. And what this does is give a lot of tax incentives for farmers to institute best management practices. Now, I will tell you that our bill was designed to garner bipartisan support, to garner buy-in from the agricultural community through those financial incentives. As an example, we recommended tripling the money that IDOLS uses for the nutrient reduction strategy. The governor's proposal comes in below that. That's a starting point. I couldn't tell you what that final number is that needs to move that needle, but unfortunately right now in the political landscape that we're in, seeing what we've seen from the other side, it's just a pipe dream.
I would just add, from my perspective, talking to both those who serve Iowa, the experts that do research here, and Iowans who are concerned about their water, the number one thing that I've been asked to stand firm on is fully funding the request from the Iowa Flood Center for the Iowa Water Quality Information Sensor Network, and with the $500,000 to repair and update the system one time, and $600,000 annual appropriation. And we don't see that in this proposal, and it's not in the current Ag and DNR budget bill.
Speaking of the Ag and DNR budget bill, there is some funding in there, though, correct?
There is $300,000 one-time appropriation.
Do you plan to vote for this plan? You said it's a drop in the bucket, not better than an empty bucket, so I couldn't tell whether they're going to introduce this as a standalone bill or as part of the Ag budget, but in any case, this is something you would vote for as better than nothing.
We don't necessarily have all the information we would need yet. We don't even know for sure, I don't think. I think the understanding is that this is going to be an amendment, but we don't have that firmly yet. So we're still waiting for some information.
And I won't speak for other members of my caucus. I'm also studying the ramifications of this. What I don't want to see happen is that this passes this one singular year and that people raise the flag and the banner saying mission accomplished on water quality. This is a tiny step forward in a long march to achieve clean, healthy water in the state of Iowa. And so that is on my mind when I'm deciding how to vote for this, because I do not want to give the impression that this is a one and done solution.
I would just add that I think this represents a real opportunity. We're now hearing from leadership of both parties across Iowa that water quality is an issue. And this is not something that in the, sometime between 2 and 7,000 hours that it will take to wrap up this legislative session, we're going to fix it. This is something we're going to have to come back and work on in future years, and I'm thrilled that we're going to be doing it with bipartisan support.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.